Hey, and howdy everyone. This is Pete Bickford. I am your host for this edition of the ComicBase Livestream. We're coming at you from Franklin, Tennessee, where it's getting cold out there. Not quite wintry for us in terms of like no actual snow on the ground, but it's thinking about it. Anyway, hope you guys are all doing well. We're going to be talking, really just taking your questions for the next hour. I want to make this one as much as I can an all Q&A live stream. Some folks have sent some questions to me already, and enough of them were centered around digital comics that we'll be starting off with a bunch of questions around that. Another thing I want to go into is we are going to be doing, as we will be doing for our next couple of shows, giveaways. So we will be giving away brand new, still in the shrink wrap, a Wonder Woman Eagle Mouse graphic novel, brand new, and also a Green Lantern Emerald Twilight New Dawn, also brand new, both imported from England. And we'll be doing that at the end of the show. We'll be asking some trivia questions. One thing that I had to find out the hard way is that YouTube does not always display the chat in the same order to you guys, to me, that it does to you guys. So there was one poor guy yesterday who actually answered one of the questions probably in the same second as somebody else, and according to the outward-facing chat, he got rooked. So I reached out to him, and we sent him a prize pack as well. I think if this happens again, I think the only way to be fair about this one is to say the outward-facing chat has got to be whoever won in the outward-facing chat has got to be the winner on that one, because otherwise, if it just looks like I'm giving away stuff to rando people who just I just like better, which is definitely not the case. That being said, I do need to actually turn off the outward-facing chat when I'm looking at things, because it's incredibly distracting to see yourself on like 10 different monitors as you're talking. So if for some reason it happens again and you feel like you gave the first answer and it doesn't, it looks like it's at all dubious, please call it out. I will probably pull up the chat while we're doing the giveaways just to make sure that that doesn't happen. But keep me honest and reach out to me immediately if it looks like I called the wrong name. All right. Well, with that said, let's get into it. I'm going to now hide the incredibly distracted chat. By the way, I want to say hi to everyone. Hey, Richard, you're the first one here. Well done. Robert, Mike Beam, John P., I'll hit your question as well very quickly. Oro, Jeff, nice to see everyone. Greg, hey, great to see everyone. And as he points out, it's the 73rd meeting of the I Have Left Comics No I Have a Problem Society, which is definitely what we are. Oh, and by the way, before we get into any of that, please like and subscribe. Very key, especially in the first couple minutes of these things, to actually have YouTube send out the notifications. And if you like this kind of content, please hit the subscribe button and also the announce buttons. Every once in a great while we do something a little bit off the schedule. This will let you know when new things are coming down the pipe from us. And subscribing obviously just helps the channel in general. So yeah, let's get into it. All right. So I had many questions coming this week about digital comics. How do I use them in ComicBase? So let me flip over to screen 4 and let's get down to business. So you guys might have asked yourself at some point, if you look down in ComicBase, what the heck is this column just to the left of the picture? Looks like a weird round play button. And what that is it's an indicator that says that you have digital media attached to that particular comic book. Oh, by the way, I think I tried to plan ahead a little bit here and make it so that I could have my face on screen and largely not be obscuring things. But I'm going to move myself over to the other side here because that's a little bit more out of the way. Okay, cool. But anyway, if you have digital media attached to any particular book in the database or comic or whatever else, it'll actually appear with an icon down there. And if you click that icon, it will launch whatever program is associated with the media in question, and it will show the thing. So if I click on this guy right here on my machine, it's going to launch Comic Rack, which is what I've got that I use for digital comics. Let's go full screen on that one because it looks cooler. And then, yes, I can read the fantastic full adventures of the Fantastic Four, issue number 1. And this is all as part of some really terrible media transfers that DC, not DC, Marvel did way back in the day. They when CDs were young, they said, hey, we have a lot of content that we could shovel onto a CD, and they commissioned someone to take the oldest, crummiest file scans they could possibly get a hold of all their first X hundred issues of their major titles, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and you got there's 400 or 500 issues of these ones on a single CD or set of CDs, and they sold to electronic stores for $30 a set, and of course, being no fool, I sat there and said, this is the cheapest I will ever have this content available to me. And so I, of course, bought them all. I'm both appalled by the quality of the actual production value, but at the same time, it's hey, that was cheap. They have, in later years, they've, upped their game quite a bit. Comixology launched, later incorporated by Amazon, and they brought it so the digital comic books are now actually a pleasure to read because the resolution and production values are much better. And especially if you're reading on something like a larger tablet, it's very, very similar to the experience of leafing through a comic book, except that you're not actually going to damage the darn thing if you don't need to bag and board it, and it actually can be a quite nice way of reading comic books. On a phone, I gotta say, for me, not so much, unless I'm just desperate, because I don't know, it's super hard to read any length of word balloons. Manga's not too bad, if especially original Japanese, where I have no hope of reading it anyway. You can just take in the imagery, but anything where I've got to actually read all the text of that whole thing, I need something that's as close to an original comic book. If honestly, if it could be a little bigger, that's not bad for me. As possible. But anyway, so there is a way in ComicBase where you basically can just associate any kind of media you want with any particular issue. Now, the basic mechanics of it are really pretty simple. So I'm going to go here and just show the media file over here. By the way, what I'm doing here, you guys might know the trick where if I am looking at a particular issue in the database, I want to see the picture file associated with it, I can click either here or in the big picture itself and say just show picture file, and it'll pull it up in Windows Explorer and show me the graphic in question. And so here it is right there, and you'll notice that this is right now being stored in our shared directory under Pictures, M, Marvel, F, Fantastic Four, etc., etc. If I want to see the media file associated with it, I do have to use the drop-down menu on that one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the line, and I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to say Show Media File in Explorer, which will then open up the Windows Explorer window and show you which files I have on it. I guess they did, from the file dates here, I guess they did all those back in 2005, and for some reason I only have the first 21 copied on this particular machine I'm using right now. But these are all PDF files. And you'll notice that the important part here is that their names, and I have my computer set to show the file extensions. So on yours, it might just say number 1 and just have the same PDF icon. PDF is an Adobe, I think it's meant to stand for portable document format, but it really is, it's an Adobe Acrobat file. You may see it as just saying 1. Mine says 1.pdf because I have Windows set to show file extensions. I always like knowing what types of files I'm really looking at. But anyway, the important part is that the first part to the left of the file extension, the last 3 letters there, has to exactly match the issue in question. So for issue number 1, right here, it was called 1.pdf. Now, if I'd had a different type of file, if it had been a CBZ file, a CBR file, anything like that, it would just be 1.cbz, 1.pdf, CBR, etc. But the important part is if I take the number 1, drag it onto it, it will then associate it with the file, and then it does the magic where I can either read all about the comic book, the physical thing, and see all its information in ComicBase. I can look at its picture if I click the picture, or I can actually read the comic itself if I do that. And that's pretty slick. It's not a bad way of getting control of what, for a lot of us, if we have a lot of digital comic books, just winds up being a million scattered files all over our discs. And by doing it this way, it kind of organizes them in a nice way, and it makes it so, again, if I'm feeling nostalgic as I'm looking back in the early issues of Fantastic Four in my collection, I can actually pull them up and read them, and that's not a bad way to go. But let me show you, for instance, I'm going to go and let's take, I'll go back to Invincible and just I've shown this process before, but in case you haven't seen it, you'll notice down here on my copy of Invincible, nothing has got any media files attached to it. But I went to my Comixology account earlier on, and I said, okay, look, let me download my copy of Invincible #1 now. And Comixology doesn't allow you to download a great many of the files in question. A lot of them are copy protected, and we'll talk about how to deal with that initially. But some publishers, Image has been quite good with this one, IDW and so forth, will allow you to have what they call unprotected backups of your collection that you download. If so, then these just become, as you'll see, just regular CBZ files. This one, they gave it a name, Invincible-1-78.cbz. And if I just took that and I just tried to drop it onto ComicBase, it would actually figure out, of course on the wrong screen, it says, hey, that looks like a Comixology file, but I don't see a title called Invincible-1-78, so I can't exactly figure out which one you mean. All right. So there's a couple ways to solve this problem. I'm going to hit cancel for now. The laborious way to solve the problem is I just go on this one over here. I either click on the name part here, or I click on the main thing and I hit F2, which gets me into renaming mode. I change it to just #1 because it's for issue #1, and I drag it onto the title. All right, but let me back on that one. I'll show you guys another trick you can use. If you hold down the Alt key when moving any item onto ComicBase, especially if you hit down the Alt and the Shift, which will move it instead of copy it, what will happen then is when you drag it is it will then prompt you, of course on the other screen, it'll say, hey, you want to copy this file as, and it pulls off the last bit of its name, which is, it is not issue -78. Again, that's a weird naming convention that Comixology used. It's like, nah, it's just issue #1. I hit OK, and then boom, it simultaneously moved it, renamed it, and associated it with the title, and did it in that simple motion. So once again, the way to do that is if you hold down the Alt key while moving an item onto the grid in ComicBase, it prompts you to rename it as you go, which is a little bit faster than clicking on everything and renaming it individually. And if you hold down the Shift key when dragging things onto ComicBase, it's going to move them as opposed to copying them. So you can put those together, rename it, move it, and copy it, and that's a pretty quick way of associating your files with items in ComicBase. And just to prove that it worked, let's go ahead and click on it here. And of course, I closed Comic Rack and it's opening on the other screen. So let me just dig that, move that on the other screen, and then boom, there we are. Okay, so that's the basics of this one. But let's talk about how to deal with some of these protected files. Now, I believe this. All right, so here's my library up on Comixology. I'm an OG Comixology guy, which is to say, I took advantage of a lot of things that they were giving away when they first got started before Amazon acquired them. So I actually had to go and buy a couple of new free things. I downloaded a couple of free things just to run through how their current stuff works. But one problem they've got here is when you get to an older issue like Amazing Spider-Man 36. This one here can't be downloaded, not directly, because all the files are copy protected. Now it'll let you download it onto your iPhone, your iPad, things like that, in a file that only the Comixology app can read, but it won't let you just pull down the file and manipulate it normally like a regular file. It really wants to have that copy protection on the file. So we can't just get to that issue. The best you can really do to that one is go to the Comixology and start reading it here. Which, okay, well, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we can do that. But here's where you can start using another trick. So whenever you click on anything, and let's go, so here it is. Okay, so there, here's Spider-Man's, I believe it's second series number 36, right? All right, and so if I take this guy right here, you'll notice at the very top of my web browser, it's got the link, comixology.com/comicreader811143441. Who cares, right? But I can actually drag from here onto my desktop, and it makes a little internet shortcut, which at this point is called Amazing Spider-Man 1999. It's whatever the title of the issue was, but it points to this page. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to make a new window. All right, so just and close the old one just to prove that I'm not pulling any fast ones on here. So all right, okay. So now I've got this on my desktop. So what kind of file are these shortcuts, you might ask? And the answer is, depending on your web browser, it's going to be either going to be called I believe a web link file, a .web file, or a .url file. Now, if you look at it, even though I have file extensions set to show on my computer, you'll notice that there is no .url on there. So how do I know that? Well, if I click on it and I right-click and I say Properties, it will show me all the inside foo on this title. And let's see here. Matt, it does not make this easy, because basically it bled off the edge here. But if you look right there, go back to the General tab, you'll see a type of file is an internet shortcut .url file. Now, it's never going to show you the .url as you're working in Internet Explorer, so don't worry about it. So what I would do is I'm just going to go ahead and I can just let's go to, this is for issue number 36. Let's pull up the comic in ComicBase that this is for. Amazing Spider-Man, I believe. Is it second series? Let's have a look. Yeah, second series, the all-black cover right here. And I've actually already dragged this on, but I'll show how it goes. I'm going to go click on it. I'm going to type 36, which really changes its name. If you knew, if you knew to look, really makes its name 36.url is its real name, but 36 is good enough. And then if I go and I drag it onto there, it then associates it with a program. And then if I go click on it, remember, it can't open up in an application, but it can take me straight back to this particular issue, and even picked up the page I was reading last when I go back to Comixology. And, all right, so that's that. And then I think in previous times I've also showed how you can go to YouTube, you can find movie trailers, you can drag those URLs out. That's if you want to start associating movie trailers with things you've got, and so forth. So that is pretty much the question on that one. I'm going to check the chat now, see if there's any clarifying questions needed for clarity, and then we'll take it from there. Andre, hey everyone, glad to see all new folks doing here. Oro says, ComicBase TV looks low res here too. I don't know. We're broadcasting in the same res we had before. I don't know if there's a problem with the intake server on YouTube. It looks fine looking at the preview monitor I've got for me, so I don't know. You might, if you have to, watch the playback on this one. It would take you out of the swing of things, but if necessary, if you need to go back on these ones, YouTube should re-encode things at different resolutions as you go, but I don't know. Okay, let's see here. Rick, and by the way, I will get to John's question in a moment here. Why do some comic books with multiple covers go with 1A, 1B, 1B? Several ones go with 1A, 1B. Why do they start with 1A, 1B? Well, let's just go with 1A, 1B, 1C, etc. Yes. Which we're jumping around a little bit, but that's cool. The answer for that one is, and let me see if I can show it right here, is, okay, so like for instance on Amazing Spider-Man number 2, let's pop back to that one, there actually was an official cover number 1. This was the regular issue of that one. The 1A was the special cover, right? It wasn't meant to be. It was the special variant, and they introduced it so right from the beginning. And then later on, they added even more variants, and it got nutty. When you go to things like Doctor Who, especially the later series, I think. Okay, so like it looks like. All right, so. For instance, there was a regular issue number 1, then there was a 1A, then a 1B, 1C, etc. And then they kept that up for a while, but then eventually they got to a point where around issue number 10, they stopped having a regular issue. There was no official regular cover. There was just cover A, cover B, cover C, etc. And as a result, the whole thing just kind of degenerated. So if there is an official blessed cover for that issue. That becomes the regular cover, at which point then we will call it, if it's number 10, we'll call it number 10. If there's, then all the variants get numbered consecutively after that is A, B, C, D, F, G, etc. But if there's not, if there's only 50/50 covers or whatever else, and then really, really special variants, at that point then we're going to go straight into the variants. Now, where this is kind of a bummer is there's a feature in ComicBase which is there to say, hey, look, I don't love variants so much, so just show me regular issues. But if you ever notice at different times when you're doing updates, you'll see a message and it'll work very hard for 10, 20 seconds sometimes to say, hey, I'm checking variants. Well, what's it really doing when you're checking variants? Well, what's doing is it's figuring out, is there an official issue for these comic books? And if so, can I essentially bless that one as the official issue, as the official number one or number, whatever, the official copy of that one, or is my only choice to treat everything as a variant? And that is what allows us to then do this filter where I can say, okay, items to show. Now, my default is show me everything. But I also can say, just show me things I own, or show me owned items and variants. And you'll see that for issues 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at that point, there were official number ones. And so I can cut the list down because I don't care about the variants. But starting at number 9, then there were no official ones, and so all I've got is the A's and the B's. So anyway, that's it helps you cut the clutter out when an official item exists. So that's 2 for 1. Right, I'm going to back up one because I owe John an answer to an earlier question he had. John P. asks, let me turn this one back on here and get back to the main screen, turning off the picture-in-picture. Okay, got it. John P. asks, why is that not showing on the keying? Oh, because the key didn't come back on. Come on. Fighting with my board a little bit today. Okay, John P.S. Hey, I just renewed and installed Compbase 2022 and noticed that the option to get a physical copy of it. You mentioned in here you stopped doing that for the 4K Blu-ray. What's up? What we stopped doing for the 4K Blu-rays, which used to be just called the Compbase Blu-ray Edition, is once upon a time Blu-ray was young and only like 20 people ever bought them. So we thought, well, hey, how can we make Blu-rays kind of awesome? And one thing that was really cool back in the day is that you could actually just take our entire art library and dump it on one Blu-ray and barely compress it, and it would all fit. This has not been true for many years now, and Blu-rays in the meantime have gotten quite laborious and expensive, and to produce and so forth. We went from a regular Blu-ray to a dual-layer Blu-ray, which gets up to 50 gigs of data. But even then, it's like we actually realized we've added so many comics to the database over time, so many pictures, that in order to keep an acceptable level of quality to the whole thing, and also allow you to have 4K imagery, because that requires a lot more data as well. We were actually having to compress this thing down that it was almost not being a Lux experience anymore. So we cheated around it for a bit with, it's like, well, okay, you're downloading the pictures, but the really nice versions are the ones, you're installing it off the discs, but the really nice versions are actually the ones you download, because we weren't as limited by the size of the disc. This time out with Compbase 2022, we actually switched to, if you install, we actually ship it on 2 50 gig discs. So the whole thing, if you install it all, is going to be in excess of 90 gigabytes on your disk, which is a lot of data, but on the other hand, it's really, really pretty. So, measure that as you will. One way to really kind of have the best of both on that one is to use the new Quick Start feature with Compbase 2022. Where what you can do is you install thumbnails for every single thing, which gives you access to see what the differences are between all the covers. And then the second you start clicking on anything, it can usually download in a couple hundred milliseconds. 100 milliseconds, 150 milliseconds is what we've seen typically. It can download the full version of that one. So you have the illusion of having always had all the high-res versions already preloaded on your machine, because whenever you want them, they're there. But in the meantime, they don't take up 90 gigs on your machine, and it installs much quicker, which is, that's, again, I think on the technical tricks we pulled off with this last release, I think it's the one I'm proudest of. And then back to your original question, which is, we said we weren't going to ship discs out anymore. Actually, the feature we lost was a feature we had when we very first started doing Blu-rays. Was we said, okay, we'll give you all the stuff on, back when it was easy to copy our library onto a Blu-ray. We said, okay, what we'll do is we'll, along with the Blu-ray edition, we'll give it to you at a nicer quality, but we'll also give you quarterly updates. And so we wouldn't, part of what you were paying for was you're paying for our shipping and production to send you 4 discs over the course of time, not just one, where we'd put out, pretty much quarterly on the whole thing. Anyway, that just, as time went on and the picture library got larger and larger and it became more of a production to squish it onto discs and so forth, we had to make a decision, which we made a couple of years ago. It says, look, as of this year, we're going to not ship out quarterly updates. On the other hand, we're going to knock $50 off the price of the product as well. Actually, it might even be more than that now, because it really, especially when you're shipping discs to Turkey or someplace like that, it is really expensive. It was costing us $100 to ship the thing out, so we weren't making any money on that one, and it was really an effort. So that's the long version, I guess, of why ComicBase Blu-ray is no longer called ComicBase Blu-ray, and it's now called ComicBase 4K, because the differentiating feature is that you now have the access to the 4K images, not just the standard high-def images. But we also, when we ship them to you, we're going to ship you, if you buy in physical format, we're going to ship you 2 50 gig discs with it, but we're only going to ship them to you once. We're not going to ship you a new set every quarter, because that would just be ruinously expensive. All right, hopefully I answered that one to death, which is my usual thing. Okay, let's see here. So Steve says picture looks like it's low res. Man, I don't know what to do about it. The volume's fine. Yeah, I don't know, man. We're broadcasting at high res. I don't know what to do about it. Sorry about that. All right, let's see here. Okay, Greg Ray asked, do the contents of the item description field in ComicBase show up in the Atomic Avenue page the way notes do, or is the way that the grading notes field or does the way the grading notes field does? The item description field, which we introduced with ComicBase 2022, and let me go ahead and pop over to a title that actually has some of that filled in. Let's see here. Oh, darn it, I'm looking at an old database. All right, let me pull up my database. This is the problem when you're dealing with my stuff, is that it goes back and forth all the time as to whether stuff has been migrated back and forth between notes and item description based on whether I was last testing ComicBase 2021 or ComicBase 2022. All right, so here's Doctor Who. And you'll notice that the thing that says, this is the photo cover, this is the Christopher Jones cover, etc., these are in a new field called item description. Now, what we did is, if you had that stuff in your old notes field, it automatically is pulled over to item description when you've got it in ComicBase 2022. And when you push that up with your for sale items on Atomic Avenue, it's handled the same way the old notes were, where if it's the same as what the average is what the regular note says, in other words, if I've got an item for sale and it says cover D by Mirka Andolfo, and Atomic Avenue says cover D by Mirka Andolfo, no special note appears of your copy on your listing on Atomic Avenue, because there's no point repeating the main description, because it's right above the entry anyway. So grading notes, which are unique to you, are the only thing that sticks out, or any notes you've attached to your issue that are different than what the main issue said. So the same rules that apply on this one is that if the item description you've got is exactly the item description I think is now we're kind of controlling that field now, but any notes you've got that are different than what the standard notes or the standard item description are, those will appear next to the entry. All right, I hope I answered that. Okay, so let's see how we're doing. Okay, picture okay for me, but the sound is low. John, so I guess we're getting your mileage may vary. Let's see here. Okay, and I think that's Steve answering Jim's question. Let me see here. Jim Idle says, can you migrate individual series, or you have to do the whole database? It's got to be the whole database on that. It's really a feature of introducing the new item description field in order to sort out what's what. We really want to pull out what are the things that let you identify the item that's in your hand, as opposed to describing the contents or describing what's special about the issue in general. But the thing that lets me say, yeah, this is cover C, or this is the one that that's special because of whatever the physical item is. It lets me tell it away, which the one that lets me tell it apart from other similar items of the same issue, that needs to be in the item description field. And it really is one of those things we really need to pull it out, and it's not an optional kind of thing. The only thing that we do for compatibility with anyone still running ComicBase 2021 is if you left that in your notes field and you start posting to Atomic Avenue or so forth, or you submit corrections, we check it issue by issue and say, look, if we were to parse out what you've got, would it look exactly the same as our new item description version with ComicBase 22? And if so, we ignore the parts that are the same. So we basically kind of convert on the fly and then compare what's different as we go. Sorry, I'm being murky about that. I did not mean to be, but yeah, as a matter of just getting along and everything, we do need to kind of move people along so that all the things, when you pull down a data, when you pull down an issue update or content update, or you look for it in different places, you're always going to see the stuff, that identifies it across the whole database in the item description field, not the notes field. All right, I hope that helps. Let's see here. Oro asks, so what's the scoop on the DC chess collection? Batman, UK, USA, please. Collectible action figures try to get a foot in the door currently in comics. Yeah, that's a weird one. What it is, so the same guys who brought us these lovely volumes, they are a company called Eagle Moss. They're in the US, UK, Germany, Australia, maybe some other places, but I know they've got presence, in all those different companies. They are largely known as, they're almost like the more affordable version of Sideshow Collectibles on a lot of their stuff, where they do action figures that are, they're better than the average stuff you're going to get down at like Walmart, but they're not quite as good as like what Sideshow will give you. And they put them out pretty regularly in a number of different editions. They do a lot of action figures. They do models of spaceships. They have a number of licensed properties. They seem like they had some pretty talented folks doing the sculpting on it. It's pretty good stuff. One of the things that these guys are masters of, and I fully admit they've got me on this, is they found ways to get obsessives like myself to want to collect the whole dang thing. And the way they do it with these graphic novels, I think I can rearrange it in the proper way. If you look along the spines, you will find, and this is part of the DC Comics logo, so when you actually line them up on your bookshelf, they will, there's actually these beautiful Alex Ross painted tableaus of all the different Justice League and Justice Society figures and so forth, interspersed with DC comic logos or so forth. So, if you start collecting them, it drives you crazy in a hurry that you can see the picture, but you have parts missing. So even if you didn't want that issue, suddenly you want that issue because it fills in the puzzle piece. And if you get them all, it makes your bookshelf look awesome. And at some point I'll show the almost complete. I have, I think, all but 2 of the 160 volumes published thus far of the DC collection on this one. Well, they also did that with their action figures for chess. They figured, well, okay, what makes a set of action figures? Well, I don't know. We'll take DC. We'll put we'll have white be the heroes. We'll have black be the villains, and we will have different action figures. We'll do them up, about yay big. We'll accompany them with a magazine. Just a brief thing. It's a little bit about the character. A little, so it's not a very substantial magazine, but we're going to bundle the figure with the magazine. We'll sell the whole thing for like £12. But then, of course, because you start getting one, you're now developing a chess set, which means that unless you get all 32 pieces, someone's getting gypped. And if you buy all 32 pieces, number one, you'll be out at 500 pounds or so. But if you do make it, it looks really, really cool in your game room. So yes, that's how they got in. They got in by virtue of the magazine that came with it. We do not currently mark action figures in Compbase. It's not something we currently do. But if you start bundling magazines or comic books in with your action figures, that's a great way to get them into the database. So that's the long version of that one. All right, so let's see here. Jim Idle says, if I modify the item description field, will it be overwritten later? Yes. Well, complicated answer. If you allow us to make corrections, so when you download updates, it asks, are we allowed to make corrections to different types of fields? So if you say we're allowed to make corrections to your title information, then yes, your title and issue information, then then the master database's version of the item description is going to take precedence. Now, how do I avoid that? Now, probably I'm going to say the least optimal way is to turn off the ability for us to make corrections, because it's actually pretty important for us to be able to say, look, the official C variant of Doctor Who number 10 is this one. It's not the one that somebody else described differently, because otherwise you get chaos as people try to decipher all these variants, because most of them aren't labeled as C on the cover. It becomes somewhat arbitrary to say, well, which one's which, right? And so we need to have one source of truth for that. So you really do want to let us be serve as the official listing of that one, but a way to get in to market as the official listing, especially if you have things that make the variant identification clearer. For instance, if you say it's not just the Andolfo cover, it's the Mirko Andolfo cover. Even better yet, it's the 1 in 10 retail incentive Mirko Andolfo cover. Even better than that is the 1 in 10 Mirko Andolfo cover with red logo or something, or with Superman fighting Wonder Woman on the cover. Something that really lets me just say, oh yeah, I don't need to stare at some artist's scribble to see which one's which. I could know just by reading the item description which one I'm handling. We are going to tend to favor item descriptions that are more complete. So if someone does have an item description that's more complete than what we've got, please submit it as a correction. So just go ahead and make your change to the item description, highlight it over on the screen right here. Click on the far left, then right-click and say Submit New or Corrected Data, and they can send to our editors to accept or decline it and so forth. But that's how stuff gets added to the master database. So that's super helpful if you can do that. And so I definitely would appreciate anyone who does do that. All right, so let's see here. And Richard Scott says, check out the internet about sad news about George Pereira. Yes, absolutely. He's a giant. I mean, there's few people of his stature in the world of comic books, and there's one less. All right. And on that depressing note, how are we doing for time? We're actually not too bad. Okay. Well, I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay. Question: how do I use the ComicBase cover gallery screensaver? All right. So first of all, there were some random reports we've gotten in about people not being able to find the ComicBase cover gallery screensaver after installing ComicBase 2022. What I would say, if that does seem to apply to you, is go ahead and do a repair install of ComicBase, or just download and install the very latest ComicBase in there, just to make sure that it got the whole thing out there. One thing that can get in the way of these things is if you've uninstalled an older version of ComicBase after installing the new version of ComicBase, because ComicBase 2021 and ComicBase 2022 both, if you have the archive editions, both include that screensaver. Both of them will, if you install 2021 after you install 2022, it's going to uninstall the screensaver that 2022 just installed. So don't do that. And if you do that, reinstall 2022, I guess is what I'm saying. So anyway, the way you would get to Screensaver is you go into your Start menu, and let's see, will it do it from here? Yes, it will. So if I say Screensaver, and say Change Screensaver, pull it up on the proper screen so you all can see, it will take you to the screensaver settings. And what you're looking for is not 3D text, not blank, not bubbles. You're looking for ComicBase cover gallery right over here. At which point, a couple settings you can set for it. Do you want to show comics? Do you want to show books, magazines, everything? Whether or not to include mature titles or not, so forth. And the speed at which it's going to go through things. Honestly, the default for speed is, I find it, it not bad. But if you really like seeing things whip around, just go and crank that to the right. If you say, no, I want more time to just, see things before they move on to the next thing, then don't. And then if I go and hit preview, then it will spin up here in a second. What's doing right now is it's picking up, I forget, I think 10,000 issues items out of your database, and it does that with a different list for every one of your screens, and then starts doing this little cycling right here. You can let that roll for a second, and that's kind of what that looks like in real life as you go. Basically, if the next picture it was going to load up is a large one, it winds up cycling the large one. If the next one it was going to do is small, it winds up replacing one of the small ones in the tableau, and it takes it from there. And so I find, especially on multiple monitors, it's just fascinating just seeing the world of comics out there. So I definitely suggest if you've got the archive or the 4K editions, yeah, absolutely sit to the Compbase Cover Gallery Screensaver and let it rip. Now, a couple little fine notes on that one I would say are useful to do. One is if you've got the Quick Start installed, it's going to be just okay for a bit. You're going to see all the, basically, with the Quick Start pictures, it has the number ones at high res, but it doesn't have the, high res versions of the other pictures until you start using the program a bit and start actually clicking on different things. So expect to see a lot of number ones. That's about the one thing that kind of, the quality of it suffers slightly by using Quick Start because you just won't have as much variety, at least initially, when you start using the program. Anyway, and the second thing is you might, depending on what you're doing, you might want to go ahead and, if you get some time, because this does take some time, go under File menu, go to File Tools, and then do a rebuild list of your picture files. What this does is it goes through all the pictures, all the picture listings in your entire database, and says, all right, let me go find the picture that's associated with this particular one and figure out what its dimensions are. So, how big is it, and so forth. Is the picture even around, and so forth. And it does that for every item in your database, so all million-plus items in ComicBase. Now, as a result, it is slow. I mean, it's one of those things like, if your computer's not doing anything else as you run it overnight, let it run overnight. On my machine, it takes a couple hours. But the benefit of doing that, two things. One is it lets the screensaver, because the screensaver is relying on those picture listings being correct. It lets the screensaver know what its maximal list of pictures is ahead of time. And it also clears out any old references if you've been moving picture libraries around and not telling it or doing things like that. It updates all that stuff. And then finally, it also lets the lists that show pictures in ComicBase draw ever so slightly faster. So, so like I say, it's not a bad thing to do. It's a marginal thing. But if you want your life to be just a marginal bit better and your computer isn't doing anything else tonight, yeah, go ahead and let it rebuild that list. So under File, go to File Tools, Rebuild Lists. Now I'll show it again here. File Tools, Rebuild Lists, and then go ahead and click Rebuild Pictures List and hit Rebuild. Not going to do it right now because that's tedious, but it's not a bad thing to do. All right, let me see. We go. Jim Idle says, "What about mature issues in the screensaver?" Yeah, yes, you can say whether you want to show them. You can say, "Show me." Well, let me go ahead and pull up the screensaver stuff again. Let's go to Screensaver and pull it onto the right screen so we can see it. So your options on that are, you do want to exclude them, in other words, never show them, include them, which is, they come up, or only say, nope, I like hot women and I want to see nothing but. In which case, yep, then you got that. So that's the thing. And you can also, control whether it's books, magazines, etc. I'll leave to your imagination what the different permutations will look like, because God knows I'm not going to demo this on the screens on the podcast. All right, moving on. Let's see here. I hope I got things. Okay. I think we come up with the current chat. So let me go back. I'm going to call time in about 5 minutes because I want to do the giveaways. But let me do this. Got questions on how do I make a new issue, and then the second one that came in of how do I make a new digital issue. I'll try to hit both of those. So making a new issue. So let's say I've got a brand new title that the world has never seen before. What I would do is I'd go up, you can either go straight to over here. This is the new item, and it's going to default to, if I just slam Control N, or this one, it's going to make a new whatever my main type of media is. So I can, if I do that, it's now making a new book. If I go over to magazines, it's now making a new magazine, right? But you also can use that as a way of quickly, say if I want to make a new comic book, but I was looking at magazines before, I can just, there's a little drop down here. I can say, make a new comic book. So let's go ahead and make a new comic book. All right, now, as I start typing, it's going to, so if I put in, let's say, Doctor Who, right, it's going to offer all the things that are already in the database. Now, if one of these is one of the things I want, let's say I want the Doctor Who 5th series, I just got to type as much as I need to make it unique. I'm going to hit, click on it, hit OK, and at which point it's going to pull up that series. It's going to figure out the last regular issue was number 16, so it's probably going to guess, hey, he probably wants 17. And then it says, all right, do I want to make 17? I could even make 5 or 10 or 100 issues at once by saying make issues 17 through 150, and in which case it'll make them all. I set my cover price, my selling price, whatever those things are. I hit save. It's going to create them. Now, I will show a quicker way to do some of this. And I also want to show, well, before I do that, I want to say, well, what if it's a title that has never existed before? All right, so let's go ahead and make a new comic book over here. And this is, let's call it Dr. Robinson, right? All right, so there's never been a Dr. Robinson comic book, right? At which point I'm going to hit OK. It's going to say, all right, tell me about Dr. Robinson. And the one thing it's got to know in order to make the thing is it has to know who the publisher is. Because with the, if I know the publisher, then I know where to put pictures and media and things like that. I can't do anything without it. Everything else is optional, but it does need to know the publisher. So let's say this came out in 2020. I'm going to hit save. And it says, all right, brand new title. Hey, he probably wants to make issue number 1. Let's say I'm going to make issues 1 through 4. They're all $2.95. And I'm just going to let them fill in from there. Boom. It just made issues 1 through 4. All right. So that's the way you would do it if you're creating a brand new thing. If you do this, please highlight them all afterwards. Submit them as new or corrected data so that we know about your new title. And that way it helps everyone because it gets added to the database and it adds to your, you get points for it, which are good for bragging rights, basically. But it helps get the whole conversation going. Another advantage of adding it to submitting anything new to the master database is once it's submitted to the master, it becomes saleable on Atomic Avenue, at which point then you start getting price feeds on how these things are selling, and then it winds up being they say, just like there are vicious circles where bad things make worse things. That starts a virtuous circle where you doing a nice thing by giving new data lets new data come to you in return, and it helps everybody in the process. So strongly suggest do that. So 2 other fine points before I move on from this one. You might have noticed, or you might not have, that there's these little tiny buttons on the right here. Let me magnify them. There's a plus and a minus. What's that all about? Well, if I hit minus and I've got a line connected, it's going to delete. Say, hey, did I want to delete that issue? It's basically the same as saying, highlighting the line and hitting the delete key. All right. I say no, I'll leave it alone for now. But if I hit plus, it basically is going to add the next sequential thing to the series. So hey, I had issues 1 through 4. Issue number 5 came out. All I got to do is slap that item. Boom, done and done. And did it in a couple seconds. All right. Next thing I want to say is, how would I do this with a digital comic? Let's say 5 was digital only, right? All right. So so a couple things about digital only comic books. So I don't know what the cover price would be. Maybe they come with one, maybe they don't. The point is they can't typically be sold. So the current value on a digital comic book is always going to be 0. Furthermore, you're going to want to go and set the variation to be digital right there. And it doesn't hurt if you also put either in the notes, the item description, I would actually just say in the item description, just say digital only. So that it knows that this is the digital version. It only came out in digital format. People won't go crazy trying to find it online and so forth. And it also, if you post to Atomic Avenue, it won't even try to post your digital issues because it knows you can't sell them. So anyway, that's how you would go about doing that stuff. I hope that answers the questions. I'm going to do one more quick check of the chat, and let's give away some stuff. Also, Greg wants to remind everyone, we have a dedicated thread in the CB message boards, so you can request live stream topics and demos. Please do. And Jim Michael says, once able to see the detailed screensaver in the low res view. I'm sorry about that. I don't know about that. And Steve says, future live stream, can you go over how to determine publisher, how to handle title names, leading articles, etc., and other strange things? Wow, that is a good topic, and yes, when we have a little bit more time, let's absolutely do that one. Great suggestion, Steve. All right, good to go. All right, well, let's give away some stuff. All right, so, let's do, let's see. Okay, so let's do the Green Lantern one first. This is Eagle Moss, DC Comics graphic novel number 159. Lovely beast here. It is Green Lantern, Emerald Twilight, and New Dawn, and also reprints Green Lantern number 87. I can't tell you more about it because it's still in the shrink wrap. Anyway, I'm going to give this away to the first person, and I'm going to look at the exterior chat for the answer on this one. The first person who can tell me, Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, what was his weakness? All right, and let me now pull up the outer chat and see who hits it first. All right, Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, and yes, this is before the retconning and so forth. Let me go ahead. I actually had graphics queued up for this one, so let me go ahead and pull those up as we're waiting. Boom, there we go. And Media Player 1, there we are. That's the boy. Jeff Schultz, I'll give it to you. Wood. I would have gone with either wood or the color yellow. And the reason wood is particularly an answer is this one right here is getting clunked on the head when he's surprised by someone with a club. The way it was originally portrayed is that wood will get basically the ring lets you create anything you can imagine. It makes you vulnerable. It gives you all sorts of things like that. But originally I'd heard it explained that wood has some yellow in it, so it could kind of get through your force field thing. It was later retconned as no, because the Green Lantern powers make everything you're thinking of real. The fact that he once got snuck up on and surprised by wood made it so wood, was a vulnerability of his. So anyway, a little convoluted, and later on they got rid of even the yellow as a vulnerability to the Green Lanterns just in time for the Sinestro Corps. So anyway, so that was a thing. All right, so Jeff, please send me your contact details after the show, and I've got this. I think I actually have this ready to roll if I can find where I put it. Where is it? There we are, lower thirds. So let me... All right, so please, pbickford@human-computing.com. It'll stay up on screen for a couple minutes. Send me an email with your contact details, and you get the Green Lantern. All right. That will come up one more time if you guys missed it, but let's get on to the other one. All right. All right. Next one is Wonder Woman. Paradise Found, originally Wonder Woman 171 through 177, also reprints Wonder Woman number 6 from 1943, slick volume. Also still in the shrink wrap. And Jeff, I guess you could win them both. If so, you have a solid inch or inch and a half of the spine of the DC Comics logo. It just will make your bookshelf look awesome. All right, so this one's a little weirder, a little harder. It's not a Wonder Woman question. It's kind of a Superman universe question. What does black kryptonite do? All right, and let me see if I can... the graphic I've got for this one unfortunately kind of gives the answer away, but If this was originally, I believe it was originally introduced in Supergirl number 5, might have been the 3rd series, but Black Kryptonite. Let's see who gets it. Looking at the chat. Or yes, this is Gad, y'all are fast. Yes, absolutely. Anyone? Black Kryptonite. So green kryptonite, as you guys probably know, is terribly toxic to all people from the planet Krypton. Red kryptonite was kind of like the random whatever Shelley Moldoff and Julie Irving felt like making it do that week. It was the thing that would give like people like 2 heads and make them act drunk and crazy things like that. Gold kryptonite would steal your powers away. And all right, got to give it to Thomas B. Separate beings, yes. And here's the graphic on that one. So basically, it does for DC Heroes what the transporter in was it Mirror does in Star Trek. It basically it takes good you and evil you, and evil you obviously has a way more bitchin' looking costume, but it separates you into separate people where good you then has to fight evil you, and I believe I might be on like an Earth 22. I think it caused a bunch of the people to wind up wiping out their families. But anyways, yes, it splits. I might be thinking of a different kryptonite on that one, but yes, it makes you into you and evil you. I guess if you're Spock, it gives you a beard. But in Supergirl's case, it just made her look like leather, crazy girl. Anyway, so that's that. The winner on that one is Thomas B. Please send me your email. I'll put that on the screen one more time. Where are we at? Come on back to me. All right, there we are. Show it. So P. Bickford at human-computing.com. Send me a note with your mailing information, and you guys will do it. We will be doing this again. And we're saving some good stuff for right before Christmas. Some truly unique things. So, hope we see you next time. And like I say, tell your friends, like and subscribe. Oh, and also one other thing I did want to mention in terms of just giveaways. It's not really a giveaway. It's more like we want to match what you guys are already giving. If you are active duty. We started this program right after 9/11 when a couple of our customers were getting ready to ship out, and they were saying, "Well, hey, how much is my upgrade? Because I got to get on a submarine and go to the Gulf." And it was like, the answer initially was, "Dude, your money's no good here." But eventually, in order to keep that up, we had to come up with something that would survive for any period of time, and we've kept it up for better and worse, I guess about 20 years now. We have a thing called the Caps for Comics program. So if you are active duty, I'm sorry, this does not apply to inactive or retired. But just give us, a cap for, just go to the PX. If you got a cap, ball cap from you, you're not using whatever else, send it to us, and we will give you a 75% discount off of any software we make. Basically, it comes down to we're selling to you at cost. So, we have a fine collection of challenge coins from all over the universe at this point. But honestly, if all you're doing is sending us a ball cap from the PX, that's totally good with us. We just want to say, hey, for all you guys who are laying it out on the line, thank you. We appreciate the hell out of what you guys are doing, and us people who make comic software, the really important stuff, want to recognize you for that one. So anyway, that's an ongoing thing for us, and that has been going on, like I say, 20 years now, and we hope to keep that going into the new year as well. All right, guys, that's about it from me. So anyway, thank you everyone who showed up at everything. If you have other questions, please post them in the forum. We'll take it from there. All right, guys, you have a good one. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.